Hello, I'm Jared.
And I'm Ebony, and this is his.
And hers, Warhammer 40k. Yay.
I'm excited.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Why are you excited?
I'm excited because it's the end and the death part 2.
It is the end and the death part 2.
I would be more excited if it were part 3, but I'm still excited.
Yeah. So while we were reading this book, it was announced that part 3 will be coming. Eventually, probably in February, March.
Of 2024?
Yeah.
That's very soon.
Is sort of the expectation.
It's basically January 2024.
Almost, yeah.
That's super soon.
Yep. However, we finished this book.
Part 2.
And boy, are there a lot of thoughts on this book.
You have a lot of thoughts.
I have so many thoughts on this book. This one might run a little long.
Are you gonna grace us with a rating, or are you just gonna go right into the thoughts, just like full throttle thoughts?
No. I'll give it a rating. I'll give it a quick review. I'll start with the good.
Okay.
I love the concepts that this book introduces.
Okay.
I think it touches on some very interesting ideas. It gets my theory crafting part of my brain going real well.
Okay.
I think there's a lot to kind of work with, and if you've been reading Dan Abnett's other material, he has tied a number of different hints and plot threads together based on that. Now, a lot of people don't like that because they feel this is the Siege of Terra. It is a collaborative story with an X set of authors. Don't start introducing your own book series that takes place 10,000 years later. Don't hijack it for your own series.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Rating.
Not there yet. More thoughts.
So
More
many
thoughts.
So many thoughts. Okay.
In terms of other positives, I still like Dan Abnett's human characters. I think he is the only author, honestly, in the whole Horus Heresy, that I enjoy his take on perpetuals. He's the only author that I think can handle the perpetual storyline.
That's probably my least favorite storyline of the Siege.
Yeah, but I feel like you wouldn't like it
no matter who,
regardless of who wrote.
I just don't think it's that interesting. Yeah,
it's not important.
But I would say that my favorite characters in this book are humans.
Yes.
My favorite character in this book is Kyril Sinderman. I'm really into Kyril Sinderman and Mauser and being in the library and what they're doing, which really hasn't changed that much in this book. But
Sinderman was the Abnett character from book 1.
Yes.
So that's another element of
it.
Abnett writes Vulcan in a very particular way that I do like. I think he makes him maybe a little more critical in his thoughts, a little maybe less introspective, but a little more commandery.
I don't know that I've read Vulcan outside of this.
Yes, you have. Of course you have. Vulcan lives.
Yeah, but
That fire.
Yeah, but it's less Vulcan and more salamanders.
Unremembered Empire.
Okay. Yeah, I guess. And I would say that...
Well, Unremembered Empire I don't count because Vulcan is a psychopath in that.
Yeah, I would say that this is definitely more commandery and less thoughts and feelings, which is not my vibe.
Yep.
So I like this Vulcan.
What other positive notes do I have?
You have so many notes and you're like, is there a positive?
Well, I mainly I go through the dramatis personae and I see what's there.
I liked this book. I didn't hate it, which is Ebony for acceptable.
The Dark Angels storyline with Corswain and Cypher.
I love that, but I do
still like that storyline, and I think it is going in a very interesting direction. And we recently read Cypher's sort of separate novel that takes place in modern 40k. That is a whole separate theory that I've sort of crafted based on what I've read in that book. With this book, we'll try and have a dedicated theory section, I think, and go through some of that.
That would be cool. I really like Corswain, and I really like the Typhus battle that's happening. I'm enjoying that. I like that.
That one is a continuation from the first book.
I thought it was better in the first book, but I think that this book has the middle book problem, right, where you are doing the things you were doing at the end of the first book, and you're probably going to be doing them until the beginning of the third book.
Yeah,
so
but
like it's a lot of
I feel like
space
the way you mitigate the middle book problem is by writing a shorter book.
I agree. I would like to be at Horus versus the Emperor.
This book is massive, and it absolutely doesn't need that. But I'm holding off on the negatives just yet. I'm milking for every positive I can get, because the negatives list is long.
It's really savage.
I cannot tell you. Nope, hold them back. The Araman storyline.
I loved it.
Araman was excellent.
Yeah.
This is a big positive for me. I can't remember. Well, let's see. Araman has been written by McNeil, and he's been written by John French.
Okay.
I can't remember. Did you read the Araman trilogy?
I don't think so.
I think you would like it.
Mm-hmm.
You like John French.
I do.
But he's very verbose at times.
And I don't love that. Yeah.
So I think his novels are great, but they need to be read one at a time.
Okay.
I know many people who have tried to read the omnibus of three of them straight through, and they get burned out real hard.
Yeah. Yeah, I like Araman.
Abnett's take on Araman was delightful.
Yeah, I enjoyed it.
Just perfect.
That is my favorite scene of the book.
Yeah.
Araman and Kyril Sinderman in the library.
Yeah.
It's hands down the highlight of this book for me.
Other great takeaways. Basilio Foe, still one of my favorite characters.
Oh, I do like Basilio Foe.
I know he seems like sort of a late add to the Horus Heresy. I don't feel that way, because he was actually introduced in a short story in one of the Blood of the Primarchs, son or Blood of the Emperor, Son of the Emperor. There was a series of short story anthologies that were separate from the line, and Abnett wrote the story of how Foe got captured by Horus during the Great Crusade.
I would read that.
How did he end up in the prison in the first place?
Yeah.
You would love it.
Okay. I like Basilio.
It's very good.
I like his storyline. It's very me. It's pro science. Yes. I have no complaints about that. I enjoyed it in the first book.
Yep.
When he was first introduced, I was invested.
Definitely.
Yeah. Out of things.
Well, there's some of the Sons of Horus scenes are pretty good. I think Abaddon's character
he's all right.
Is all right.
Yeah, spoiler, we're reading Fall of Cadia, and so I like that Abaddon more.
Well, he's had 10,000 years of development.
Yeah, I'm enjoying it.
Okay, is that all we got? Do you have any positives that you want to add?
You listed all my positives. The Araman's my favorite thing. I'm enjoying Garville Loken. I like Loken though, so when he's on scene, I'm into it. He doesn't really do anything because middle book problem. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I'm into that. I am of two minds about the Emperor, which I don't know if that's on your list of negatives. I'm not sure I like it when the Emperor is a character that talks to people. I'm not sure I like it.
So glad you said that.
Yeah.
So I agree. Okay. I personally think the Emperor should never have been a character. For me, he is a concept for other people to interpret.
I'm not sure how I felt about that, when it was Council of Nicaea time. I think maybe that was the first time I got the Emperor as a character.
Was the first Heretic written after that? I forgot the order. Because for me, that was the real time the Emperor was a character.
And I remember thinking, I don't know if I like this. I am not against it per se, 100%. But I think there's this dichotomy, right? The Emperor is the Emperor, and he is this, godlike figure. But we're getting a lot of opinions about how the choices he's made are wrong, and I'm of the opinion that he's wrong. Spoiler alert. But I don't know that I like that. I don't know that I like people on the ground arguing about whether or not the Emperor is right in the middle of the climax of the Horus Heresy. I don't know. I don't know what I think about it, but yeah, it's interesting.
Okay. So
that wasn't a negative. It was a
No, that's fine. We sort of went from the positives to the negatives.
Okay.
Or positive to the neutral,
and now it's going down.
Now we're done with the neutrals.
I would say so I keep a books I've read diary, and it has scores of how you based on particular criteria how you feel about this book, and the lowest score I give this book is for readability, which I love a big word. I love a science event, but there are words in here where I was like, I don't know if this is in the dictionary, if it's made up, if it's Warhammer specific. Like, there was a lot of unnecessary verbosity, I felt like.
That was in the first book as well. But I feel like it was very tactfully restricted to chapters that were from Malkador's perspective.
Yeah, this one got out of hand.
Yeah.
It was all over.
And I feel like when it is Malkador's perspective, it makes sense. He's super brilliant.
Yeah.
He's been around for thousands of years.
Yeah.
He used these words when they were common.
Yeah.
So I like that for him. But yeah, right, it's kind of all over the place in this one.
Yeah, just like in random descriptions, we're just like pulling out words that like were used in 1825 in like the south of France. Like a very specific extraness.
Much of this book I feel like might be excused if you buy into the whole time and space are collapsing in on itself, and so is the structure of this book.
I suppose, yeah. There are definitely stretches where, sometimes I read a book and I'm like, I can't wait to get to the next page. And there are some parts of books where you're like, man, I can't wait for this to be over. And despite the fact that there are hundreds of chapters that are like a page long, a lot of them for me were just like, when is this over? When is this over? When is this over?
So we're ready to get into it?
Yeah.
Okay. This book is 600 pages long, and it's 250 pages too long.
I would call it a solid at least 300 pages.
I didn't want to stretch it to 300.
Like 50%.
I'll give you 250 because I know there's a lot of stuff that actually is important that you think is unnecessary. Okay. That is the first big one. This book has hundreds of chapters, and almost all of them are
like
1 to 2 pages long, and it does not work for this book.
Yeah, like we've posted some readings, and we'll probably post some more from this book, but most of our readings that's a whole chapter. It's like I could read it in like 2 minutes. Yeah. So some of them are unnecessary.
Yeah, and I have serious issue with this structure because a lot of these storylines, because you're only with them for a page or two.
And then never again for like 65 pages.
You forget them.
You forgot they existed.
You forget them. Yeah. The dramatis personae for this book is absolutely massive. And I feel like half of these characters got maybe a paragraph at most. And even those that got more than that, there are whole storylines I would have cut from this.
Yeah.
Characters whose plots finished in earlier Siege of Terra books, and they're not doing anything here.
Tops of your list was Fafnir Ron.
Fafnir Ron, not doing
whose plots in the first book were great. Like what was happening with Fafnir and Zaphon at the wall in the last book, I was into it. But like this is just like they're walking from one place to the other.
I would have cut them from the first book also.
Really?
Yeah, because I feel like both of those characters finished their storylines in Echoes of Eternity.
Okay, fine. Yeah.
Zaphon especially. Zaphon is an Aaron Dembski-Bowden character.
Yeah.
He basically wrote a mini epilogue for Zaphon in Echoes of Eternity of what happens to him after the siege.
Yeah.
Like, none of this is necessary for his character. Arcamus, Fafnir Ron, there was a whole section of a handful of shattered legionnaires that are just standing around waiting.
I don't even remember that.
With the Space Wolf. And Abnett.
Yeah.
And they have a whole tussle.
Yeah.
And it's like, what is the point of this?
Yeah, that was unnecessary.
What's the point of this?
Maybe there will be a point in part 3.
I'm not into it.
You're not into it?
No.
I can't wait till we get to your score part. I don't know what it's gonna be, but like I know what mine is.
Going down the list, apparently there were some white scars in this book.
No memory of that.
No memory.
There is a white scar dude who's a main character.
Well, there's Shiban.
Yeah, but I don't think this is Shiban Khan, and I don't think so.
Yep, it is.
Oh, okay. Good for him.
He's got one mention in the book, and it is for one paragraph, and that one paragraph is the entire chapter.
Yeah, that's unnecessary. That's an unnecessary thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, boy. Yeah, so a whole bunch of different plot threads that serve no purpose. And to me, it just shows that when this book was written, Abnett wrote the whole End and the Death, and it came out to 2.5 books.
Yeah.
And rather than an editor cutting down to 2
Oh,
books.
so they just were like, fill it up
to 3 books.
Yeah.
And it shows there's so much waste in this, it feels like. And I get that you can say it's showing how time and space are stopped or they're mixed together, and people are just sort of moving around wherever. The vengeful spirit is directly connected to the palace. The palace is directly connected to like some grassy area on the other side of the planet. Like everything is a mess. Okay, we get that. But don't structure the book like that.
I don't know what a better structure would be. I would think longer chapters from important character perspectives that you switch back and forth, right? Like Sanguinius, and then a full chapter of that, and then a full chapter of like, I don't know, the Perpetuals, and then back to a full chapter of Sanguinius, right? That is a book structure that is used, and it would be fine. I don't love it either, but it's not the structure so much as it's the unnecessary parts and the unnecessary wordiness of those parts and the total length, right? I felt like it took me a long time to read this book, where nothing happened, really.
Yeah.
Like,
I cannot tell you when I finished this book and started reading another 40k book, all like the best positive of that next book was it's not End in the Death. I was exhausted finishing this.
It's a lot, yeah.
Not in a good way.
Yeah. It is a lot of book. It's intense.
I do actually, just to cut back, I have one more positive. I know.
Positive.
I know. So,
What is it?
So at the end of the previous book, or at least partway through the previous book, Sanguinius, Dorn, Valdor, and the Emperor teleport over to the Vengeful Spirit. And they all get separated, and we're not really sure what's going on. I like the trap that Horus laid for them, which is this idea that each of the 4 chaos gods kind of picked one to try and corrupt. Now, as far as we know, none of them are actually successful. Valdor, we'll see what happens with that. But I like this idea that Khorne took Dorn, and Dorn is trapped in this desert. I wish it didn't drag on for as long as it did.
In the desert for like 2 whole books.
But I like his defense of it, the sort of applications of war that
and
he
like
did,
the
and
planning.
planning. Yeah. I thought that was neat. Valdor has a spear that anything it kills, he basically gets intimate knowledge of whatever it is, and Tzeentch floods it with demons, just like hundreds and hundreds of demons, and just is basically flooding his brain with this knowledge. I thought that was a very interesting way of going about it, and is very Tzeentchian.
Yes.
Sanguinius is basically sort of in a roundabout way approached by Nurgle, and is presented with this sort of way out of his supposed fate to die to fighting Horus. Now, there's a part in the middle of this book, and a bit of a spoiler for those who haven't read it, where Ferrus Manus shows up, and
I do like that,
and approaches Sanguinius. Now, what do you think Ferrus Manus was? Was it really him? Was it something created by Horus? Was it part of the trap for Nurgle? Was it his spirit, like that just kind of formed because the warp was everywhere?
Yeah, I think.
What do you think it was?
I think that it is Ferrus Manus, and it is the warp.
Okay.
Like, he is dead, but he can be there because there's no such thing as time. I don't think that's a Horus plan or a Nurgle plan. I think that it is Ferrus Manus.
But here's the thing about that, because there were a lot of mentions about the sort of oddness to him.
Yes.
How his words weren't matching his mouth.
Yeah.
His walk was strange.
Yeah.
And I don't know how.
You think he was like some sort of specter or like chaos recording?
Yeah, something like that.
Okay.
You know, I don't really know.
I also like
the problem is, if it is that,
I
don't know what they got out of it.
The reason I don't think it's a chaos intervention is because I don't think it benefited chaos at all.
That's what I'm saying. If it is a chaos intervention, it's a bad one.
It's bad, yeah. So that's why I don't think it is. But I also, I guess, wish that it is and something comes out of it, because I actually think it just is Ferrus Manus, and then we'll never talk about that again, and it will have just happened. Like I don't think that's going to be a thing that is discussed ever again or talked about again in the next book. So like I don't know why that was there other than fan service.
Well, I mean,
and I appreciated it as a fan. I'm okay with this service, but it didn't serve that book in any way. And I guess what it did is eat page time while Sanguinius walked to Horus, because that took a really long time.
Yeah. And lastly, we have Slanesh's attempted corruption of the Emperor.
Which Slanesh is not the Chaos God I would have chosen for the Emperor.
I actually think it worked very effectively. And of the four, I think this was the closest to succeeding. And in a way, it might still succeed if, and we'll get to this in the theory section, if my theory pans out.
Okay. I would have chosen Zange.
But why?
Because the Emperor, like, knows everything and plans everything and has a contingency for everything. It's very Zange.
But he has control over that.
Again.
Like, the idea is, what is the thing that they have that they could lose control over?
Yeah.
You know, I would say the same thing of Dorn. I wouldn't send Zange after Dorn.
No, I definitely would send Khorne after Dorn.
Yeah.
Because he's a soldier and Khorne is about bleeding.
Yeah.
That would have... the other choices are fine.
The whole element that Slanesh was playing into was the Emperor's pride, which we have seen through the Horus Heresy. The Emperor does not have control of his pride.
I guess not.
You know, and like of his ego.
Yeah.
And basically what I think what's happening is the whole idea, to give a brief overview of what this temptation was, it was the idea to, I believe, to trick the Emperor into accepting godhood under the possibly false idea
that he could beat Horus only that way.
Correct. Yeah, that this is the only way to do it.
Yeah.
And that if he were to accept that godhood, he would ascend to become the Dark King.
Yeah.
And I think would have changed who he was.
For sure.
To become, no, I mean like personality-wise. Like everything there's no good in the warp. And people say like, oh, well, all emotions are in the warp. It's like, yes, but everything is elevated to 11. And I think I've spoken to this on past episodes. The human concept of good requires some amount of moderation. Like there is nothing in existence taken to its absolute extreme where it will remain good. Nothing. And everything will always be taken to its extreme once it exists in the warp.
I can follow this logic.
So that is what I believe would happen had the Emperor followed through and become the Dark King.
Yeah.
That all of his traits, all of them are amplified.
To their worst.
To their worst.
Maximum.
Yep.
Yeah.
Now, I don't think...
I still don't know that I would have chosen Slanesh. But fine. Horus chose Slanesh, I guess.
I don't think Oleanus Pius talking him down from that was that great. Like,
I hate the perpetual.
I know you do.
I just think it's stupid.
Pius is too big of a character, too big of a name, and the community loves him too.
Why? His storyline's so terrible.
No, forget the Horus Heresy. You have to go back to what was written about him before the Horus Heresy, which was a one-paragraph blurb in the second edition Imperial Guard Codex that talked about how he sacrificed himself in front of Horus to convince the Emperor that his son is beyond saving.
Okay. Great.
And that he represented the everyman.
Yeah, I'm not into it.
Oh, I think it was terrible.
Okay.
Like, I roll my eyes at people who are really, like, into it.
I guess it's fine.
It's fine as, like, ecclesiastical propaganda.
Yeah.
For, like, all people should be willing to sacrifice themselves to convert, you know, to save the Emperor and whatnot. But I think that's stupid. Yeah. But I think what pious as he is now, like alongside Jon and Leto and Loken, as sort of like a group, I find interesting.
Loken's my favorite person in that group, seconded by Jon. I do like Jon Grammaticus. And like, finally, I guess they did do something. They encountered the Emperor and the thing.
Yep.
But like for the whole Siege of Terra, I've been like, please shut up. Like, go do something for all of
I will agree that there are multiple Siege of Terra books that his storyline didn't need to be in it.
Okay.
And it would have been fine. Similar to a bunch of the storylines here, where it just, you didn't need to talk about it.
Yeah,
you know?
I agree.
They were doing what they were last doing.
Yeah. All right. Is that the end of your negatives, or is the list longer?
Oh, God, no.
The list is so long.
Yeah, so what else is there?
I mean, you do get to see Horus versus Sanguinius. Positive.
I didn't actually enjoy that fight.
Great.
I feel like it played out, and I know you don't have this point of reference, but it played out like an anime fight, and not in a good way.
Okay.
It was basically Horus wasn't actually trying for any of the fight.
I was fine with it until that part where they're like, just kidding, he's holding back, and then full-on Horusing. But like, yeah, I was hoping for a little bit more of a matched fight, and so I was hoping in the beginning that like it would reach a climax, and then I expect Horus to kill Sanguinius. Obviously, that's not a spoiler, but like I wanted more of a sort of pitched battle.
Yeah.
Right. And it is really one-sided, and then it's like, haha, just kidding, and then it's really one-sided the other way.
You hold my true power.
Yeah.
Smackdown.
Yeah.
No chance.
Yeah.
It also included a line that I have seen multiple times in various 13-year-olds fan fictions, which is moving at the speed of darkness.
Oh, I've never seen that before, and I remember reading it and thinking, what is that speed?
Yeah. Horus has a line where he's basically like, you move at the speed of light, I move at the speed of darkness. It's like, ow, at the edge.
What does that mean?
Oh.
Yeah, it wasn't. I wanted.
When I got to the part where Horus just powered himself up, I just went, no, I'm not okay with this.
And then it just got unnecessarily brutal, like aggressively brutal.
I don't mind the brutality, actually. I just wish maybe I have mixed thoughts on it.
I'm not against brutality. I think it was the like 180 that we did from like, and maybe that was the point, right? Like this, from Sanguinius' perspective, when he's doing well, it's very graceful and light, and there's a lot of flying, obviously, and it is very uplifting. And then from the Horus end, when Horus is winning, it just is like a brutal slog through a terrible thing that you know how it's going to end, and it was bad in the first 30 seconds, and now it's just continually bad for 10 more minutes, and you're like, okay, I'm over this. So like maybe that was the point, the juxtaposition of dark and light.
All right.
Thematically positive. That's a positive. I just made up a positive.
I suppose, yeah. What else? Going through the list. Okay.
Whenever you say okay and put your phone down, it's never good.
I think I might be ready for score almost.
Ooh. All right. I would love to hear your score.
So, in its current format, I give it a 6.5 out of 10.
You think there's going to be a different format?
No, but I mean, if I could take the book as it is and just like rearrange it so that storylines were next to each other and not in single page paragraph chapters.
Okay, so in the Jared version of the book, what would the score be?
Like maybe a 7.5.
Okay.
But as is, 6.5 out of 10. I have way more negatives for this book than positives.
I am feeling like a 7.5, but then I remembered just for the Airman scene and just for the Sigismund scene.
I forgot Sigismund was even in this.
I would call my 7.5, a 7.75 for those two. Almost an 8.
No, don't cut to quarters.
Almost an 8.
You give it a 7.5 or an 8. I'm gonna make you choose.
I guess I would choose 7.5.
Okay, yeah, I'm feeling bitter. It's like no leniency on this one.
You forgot about Sigismund and Keeler?
Again, for me, that was another storyline that, well, no, I guess that one was more detailed in part 1. That's fine.
I just did, like, I appreciated Sigismund saving the refugees.
Yeah, I guess that's
And then he has that part where he talks about how, you know, he's a champion, but it's not about him. It's about the emperor,
right.
About his job. And I love a good competency porn. So I was into it. I'm not a big Sigismund fan, but I liked that. I enjoyed it. But still, it's just a couple of points below the Araman scene. I don't know why that scene was great for me. I think it was just all the right things that I like about Warhammer. It was just, like, unnerving enough to be horror, and it was just actiony enough to have
which one?
Araman in the library.
Oh, yes. Yes, I agree.
It was like the perfect morsel of Warhammer for me. So I was into that. That's, yeah.
What did you think of the whole Loken versus Samus?
Yeah, that was weird. I appreciate it. I was very excited for the end of part 1 when Loken opens the door and he's on the Vengeful Spirit. I was hoping that this book would open with, like, Loken destroying Sons of Horus on the Vengeful. I was ready for that. But then he, like, kind of fought Samus.
Samus is here. Samus is here, Ebony. Samus is here.
Yep, there was a lot of that.
So I like the idea of what Samus represents, which is that he is a demon of a chaos god that doesn't exist yet. I like that. And there's precedent for that because when Slaanesh was forming, Slaanesh demons existed and actually formed the cults that led to Slaanesh being birthed among, like, the Eldar.
This is very confusing for my brain, but okay.
It's the whole idea that because the warp is timeless, once something exists in the warp, it always exists in the warp. But that...
Okay, sure.
Yeah. And that's why, like, demons know about the Dark King, because at some point, in some
iteration
the Dark King exists.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I'm into Samus. I like that as a entity that terrifies people.
I mean, overall, I think he's overused.
Yeah, I didn't love the whole, like, holding Loken up to the burning planet part, and it kind of went on for a long time.
Okay, I got theories.
You got theories.
Yeah, and the
theories... Hit us with the theories.
Okay, so the first big one ties back to the Dark King.
Okay.
And I liked this whole idea of the prophecy in which you have, I think it was Araman who was pulling...
he's pulling the tarot
cards.
Yep.
And it ends with the Dark King
in the
forming from the Emperor. However, after the Emperor is able to basically shrug off, what was it, his compassion?
Yeah, like
his humanity?
Yeah.
And he sends that off into space.
Yeah.
Well, into the warp.
Yeah.
That, I believe, will tie back to what we are currently reading in Dawn of Fire.
Okay.
There's a old piece of lore called the Star Child.
Okay.
And I'll get to that in a second.
Okay.
But in shrugging off the Dark King, the tarot changes from the Dark King as the last card to the Despoiler. The Despoiler is Abaddon.
Yeah.
And so in the Emperor no longer becoming the Dark King, the future is changed to where Abaddon is made into the champion of chaos. And I found that to be a very interesting, like...
Transition?
Well, maybe transition's not the right word, but like a change of fate, maybe?
Sure. Yeah.
No.
I've read right over that. And I know that Abaddon is called the Despoiler.
That was a neat introduction for me, because I feel like Abaddon is a big character. And within the 40k fandom, I personally feel like he is not appreciated to where he should be.
Okay.
That is both the community and Game Workshop's fault to various degrees.
Okay.
So they've definitely been trying to right that the last couple of books.
Okay.
However, that's not the end to the Dark King theory.
Okay.
Here is my belief about how the Emperor versus Horus fight is going to go.
Okay.
So I think it is correct that the Emperor cannot beat Horus without ascending without ascending to the Dark King, without accepting godhood.
Okay.
And I think that is partly why the Emperor, well, he gets the shit beaten out of him for most of the fight.
Okay.
Until he eventually, to quote 40k in a nutshell, kills him with mind bullets.
Okay, mind bullets.
Yes. I believe what happens is the Emperor finally accepts the power of the Dark King.
Okay.
Kills Horus. But so we know in the lore, the Emperor is conscious enough to where he tells Dorn to put him back on the Golden Throne.
Okay.
And I think he knows if he is put back on the Golden Throne, it can contain his ascension.
Okay.
So he, as long as he's on the Golden Throne,
he won't become the Dark King.
He won't become the Dark King.
Okay.
Right.
But then why change the tarot? Because
he doesn't.
But he does, technically.
No, let me explain.
Okay.
So let's say that happens. He's sort of like in the metamorphosis phase. Okay. Dorn gets him back onto the Golden Throne.
It's a pause.
It's a pause.
Yeah.
So this buys him time.
Okay.
Figure it out. Okay. Figure out what to do. And I think, to cut to modern 40k, one of the sort of big theories and what we're starting to see in Dawn of Fire again is the Emperor becoming a god. And sort of miracles and his divinity is a major thing. And I think what his plan has become through psychic connections, through 10,000 years of planning, he has changed the source of his ascension.
Okay.
From accepting the power of the warp and would ascend as the Dark King to instead ascending through like faith.
Okay.
And that there's some sort of critical mass that he needs to reach there to where in order to ascend not as the Dark King, but as the Star Child.
I see.
However, and once that like threshold is met, he needs to be killed, or at least the Golden Throne needs to be turned off.
Okay.
And if he hasn't met that threshold and it gets turned off,
he becomes the Dark King.
Right. And no one has any idea when or where that threshold is.
It's a lot.
I know it's a lot. But that is my idea.
Okay.
That the Golden Throne post heresy is keeping is a containment
device
that the Emperor knows to keep himself from ascending. So that is the theory.
Okay.
Yeah?
I don't know.
Okay.
I mean, it does make sense. There are a lot of
like the
mystical happenings in modern 40k, right?
Yeah.
There is this whole the Emperor as a god.
The divinity of the Emperor is a major point, like plot thread that is happening right now in modern.
I agree. I just don't. I'm of Dorn's opinion that the Emperor isn't a god.
Could he become a god?
I'm of the opinion that ascension to godness is not a thing. You either are a god or you are not. Could you be so powerful that the average human thinks you're a god? Yes. Is that the same thing?
That's true of all the demon princes.
Yeah, I agree. They're not gods, right? That's not the same thing, right? Being a demon of Slaanesh is not the same thing as being Slaanesh, right? And so I don't think that gods are made.
I mean, the gods were definitely made. I think you mean they weren't made in the materium.
Yes.
That they came into existence in the immaterium.
Yes.
Well, there is a competing theory to that, that the Emperor Ascendant and the Emperor are two separate beings, one in the materium and one that is forming in the immaterium.
Okay. I could be convinced of that.
It doesn't work as well with my theory.
No.
But I know that is a concept.
Okay. Your theory requires the materium and the worship of the Earthlings.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I feel like my theory is designed to explain how the Emperor is able to both lose and win against Horus.
Why do you think he must lose and win?
So in the classic lore, the Emperor is holding back for almost all of the Horus fight.
Okay.
And something happens, and in various versions, it's Oleanus Pius is killed by Horus. Sometimes it's a custode that's killed by Horus. Sometimes it's an imperial fist that's killed by Horus. Someone gets killed by Horus, and it convinces the Emperor that his son cannot be saved. I will go full power.
Okay.
We know that's not going to happen now because the Emperor has literally cut off his empathy, like as a part of himself, and sent it into the war. So that whole...
You don't think that's going to happen?
It's not going to happen. But I think there's still going to be some sort of pause. It's not going to be an immediate bloodbath.
Okay.
And my theory is a way to explain that.
Okay. I guess we have to see what happens.
Yeah.
In part 3. There's no flaw in your logic. There's no reason that can't be true.
So that is one
theory. Okay.
I have a separate theory, and that is related to Cypher.
Okay. I wasn't expecting that at all, but okay.
Yeah. So as I was reading this book, and I was reminded of a couple of lines from Cypher's novel, I came up with this idea because Cypher in modern 40k is this very... He's an enigma.
Right. And no one knows who's in there, in theory, right? That's the rule.
Right. No one knows who's in there. But there was a line from his novel that I'm tying back to this one. And it was when a psyker was trying to predict Cypher's future, like using sort of traditional psyker or Eldar future sight. You know, you look upon the paths, and there's a whole talk about how the paths eventually collapse from many into one, will be your future.
Yeah.
And this psyker, Cypher's path never collapses down into one. Ever. It is always split.
Okay.
And the psyker I can't recall the psyker's name, but she cannot understand this because this isn't a thing. I believe the cipher that currently exists is some amalgamation of both Horswain and Zahariel. Not just like physically into one body, but that their literal destinies exist in one body.
But Zahariel's bad.
Yes.
Right? Okay.
Like, Cypher is not a good.
Okay.
Yeah. Like, the old lore was, as Cypher, you didn't know if he was a fallen or not.
Right.
And you didn't really know what sword he was carrying, or supposedly it was the lion sword. Why is he going to see the Emperor? Is he trying to kill the Emperor?
Yeah.
All sorts of stuff. I believe he literally has two distinct and maybe not opposite, but what's the word?
Potential futures?
No, not potential futures. Like two concrete destinies that cannot exist together. Like it is a physical impossibility.
Okay.
But from a what's it called? The study of like time.
Time study.
No.
I'm sure that has a name.
There's a
I don't know what it is.
philosophical term for it when you're like giving a reason because
Ideological?
Yeah.
Oh, look at me doing the work.
I think
it is. That is like the ontogynous of a thing.
Yeah.
It's ideology.
Yeah. Like his ontological existence
Is a paradox.
Is a paradox.
Huh.
Now, I have no idea how this happens. Personally, I think in order to defeat Typhus and the Death Guard, Zahariel eventually will do some sort of Zancian ritual.
That seems likely.
And it will lead to that merger because this being that might come from them feels very Zancian.
I agree. I could agree with that. I do feel the Zanch vibes.
So that is my idea behind how modern day Cypher will come into being.
While we're in this theory, just Zahariel and the rest of the magic dudes are in the basement doing something.
Well, they're trying to reignite the Astronomicon.
But they're also doing something, right?
Well, so what happened is they were trying to do it like the correct way.
Mm-hmm.
Typhus's like Nurgle magic came in and screwed everything up, and they said, okay, we're doing this the Caliban way.
Mm-hmm.
The Caliban way is Zaintian.
Yeah.
The Cabal.
Yeah.
Or
I
not
figured they were doing something they're not supposed to be doing.
I forgot what their group was called.
I don't remember what they're called either. Yeah.
The Order.
The Order.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I suppose I'm into that theory. I'm not against it.
Yeah. This is not like necessarily like, oh, it's going to be confirmed.
Mm-hmm.
It's just how can these things come together?
Okay. Is that it for theories?
I think the one remaining piece is apparently Corswain is on Caliban when the Civil War happens.
Okay.
I don't know if Zariel is. Like this is like older lore.
Okay.
So I don't know if that will make my theory impossible, but
Maybe.
yeah, it's something.
And you've got a Valdor theory.
Oh yes,
I think I know your Valdor.
you know your Valdor theory. The Valdor,
I've read Pariah.
yeah, and Penitent.
And Penitent, I have.
Anyone who's read Pariah and Penitent should know what the Valdor theory is. So spoiler for those books, but I believe Valdor maybe got driven a little crazy, from the Zaintian
Yes.
temptations, and is basically, I don't exactly know what his goal is, but
It's unclear.
But
Yeah.
he is the King in Yellow
Yeah.
in modern 40k,
Okay.
and that something that we didn't talk about that I think might tie back to that
Mhm.
is that the current amalgam of time and space that is the palace and the vengeful spirit and everything, like this stopped moment,
Mhm.
I believe is the city of Ash.
Yeah, that's right. There are lots of scenes where people are in a place and then they walk out of a room and they're in a courtyard where it's snowing ashes and a city has been destroyed. I
Yeah.
think it's like the city of Ash or the future city or the desolate city. I don't know. Different people call it different
And
things.
this city of Ash, even after the siege has ended, continues to exist in this moment in time.
Okay.
And I think something about that is what the King in Yellow is trying to accomplish.
Okay. Yeah, I could see it.
That is how Abnett is tying back the siege to the Elizabeth Beckwin series.
Which is very good.
Yes, as a separate series, I enjoy it.
So we're super excited for the End in the Death Part 3.
I'm less excited than I was, but
You're not excited for Horus versus the Emperor?
as long as it plays out differently than Sanguinius versus Horus.
I mean, that played out the way we thought it was going to. It ended the way you knew
Of course, it
end.
ended the way I knew it was going to end.
You just didn't appreciate the journey?
No,
Okay.
did not.
Well, I guess we didn't know a lot about this journey either. You don't know a lot about the journey for either of those endings.
Fair.
But you're going to find out.
Yep.
All right.
All right. Our next book, we are actually at this point reading
Almost done, Fall of Cadia.
almost done with Fall of Cadia,
Right.
which I will probably have an equal amount to talk about with that book too.
Ooh, another long one.
Yeah. So look forward to that in the next few weeks.
All right.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.
Down there.
And
Bye.
bye.